Let's make our Just Like Grandma Made bread. So this is a really good bread recipe, tried and tested many times, and it's my family's favourite go-to. Now, there's several reasons why I love this bread recipe. One, because we're going to be using very few ingredients, which makes it very affordable when you're on a budget, which I think we all are now. We're having to economise in all areas of our life. So just like Grandma, I will talk you through step by step how to make this delicious bread recipe. So what we need for our recipe today is 370 ml of water. We need a teaspoon of salt. We will need a sachet, which is 7 grams of yeast. And the one I'm using today is from Aldi. This is the pantry range. Fast action yeast, and you get 8 sachets in a box, and these are very reasonable. And I've done this bread recipe many times using these, and it works perfectly every time. So we have a sachet of yeast, which is 7 grams, and we also need 500 grams of bread flour. And the bread flour I'm using today is also Aldi's own from the pantry range. And again, I've used many bread flours, but this at the moment is my go-to for affordability and quality. It's a winner for me. So that's what I'm going to be using in today's recipe. Of course, you can substitute the flour for any flour you like, whether that's wholemeal or organic, whatever you prefer. So we'll also need a whisk or a spatula and a bowl to pop the ingredients in. We'll also need an oven-proof dish. This recipe, we'll be using a oven-proof dish like this one. Okay, so as long as it has a lid and can go in the oven, a casserole dish is great. So that's everything we're going to need for today. So let me show you how to make your bread. So the first thing we're going to do is add our 370 ml of water into our bowl. So I'm just going to pour that in. And now we're going to add in our yeast. So this is our 7 gram sachet of yeast. So we're just going to pop that into the water. There we go. Okay, oh, there's a little bit left in there. Okay, and now we're going to take the whisk and just gently mix that all together, just until the yeast dissolves. So I'll just give that a good stir. Okay, so you can see now all the granules have dissolved. So now we're ready to add in our flour. So we're gently going to add in our 500 grams of flour. So nothing special, I'm not going to sieve it, just going to gently tip it in a little bit at a time whilst whisking slowly. So I'm now ready to add in the teaspoon of salt. So I'm just going to pop that in now. And again, just mix it thoroughly now with your whisk or a spatula if you find that easier. Just mix it all so the water, the salt and the flour just bind together. And I'm just going to dive in with my hands and give it a really good mix, just to get all the bits from around the edges. I'm not kneading or anything at this point, I'm just making sure that we've got all the flour mixed in with the water and the salt. That's perfect. So now we just need to add a little bit of water to the dough, and all we need to do is just add a little sprinkle. So I'm just going to dip my hands in and just sprinkle a small amount of water just across the top here. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to cover this up. I happen to have a lid that fits this bowl, so I'm actually going to be using that to put on the top. And then I'm also going to be covering it with a tea towel. So if you haven't got a lid, that's fine. Just go ahead and cover yours with a tea towel, will work perfectly. And once covered, we're going to leave this now for between an hour to 2 hours, just to let it rise. Okay, so it's been a couple of hours now and the dough has risen, as you can see. So we're ready to move on now to the next stage. So what we're going to do is we're going to flour our board and take the dough out. And we're not going to knead it, we're actually just going to be folding it in on itself a few times. So I'm just going to flour the surface here. So give a nice sprinkle in there. Okay, a pinch of flour and also just sprinkle some onto the bread dough here. Okay, make sure you've got enough flour on your hands, because then we're just going to now start to remove this from the bowl. So just gently maneuver this out. There we go. Okay, so as I say, we're not going to actually knead this like you might think we would knead bread. We're actually just going to be folding it in on itself. So I'm just going to flatten it out, and then I'm just going to fold it in like so. Then I'm going to do the ends, fold it in on each other there, and then again fold it in on itself. There we go, and again just fold it in like so until it's just in a nice little bread shape. So that's absolutely fine. You don't need to play around with this too much. You don't need to be kneading it. You just folded it in on itself several times, and then you just turn it into a shape that's going to fit into your casserole dish, which for me, that is going to be perfect. So we need to leave this now to rest again for 15 minutes. And whilst that's resting, I'm going to start to warm my oven up. So I'm now going to turn my oven on to 220 degrees. And I'm also now at this point going to pop my casserole dish in at the same time. So it's going to have 15 minutes to heat up ready before we put the bread inside. Okay, so this has been resting for 15 minutes now, so we're ready to move on. So I'm just going to remove the tea towel, and then I'm just going to move the dough out of the way a moment because I need to get my casserole dish back out of the oven now. So being very careful because it's obviously going to be very hot now. I'm going to remove the lid, and then all we're going to be doing is placing the dough directly into the very hot casserole dish. So I've not put anything in the casserole dish, there's no oil or anything, it's just a hot dish. And then I'm just going to very carefully lift this up and drop it inside the dish, like so. And now I'm going to take a sharp knife because I'm just going to cut through the top just to make a cross. So I'm just going to cut through now. I'm going fairly deep. There we go, perfect. So before I pop it back into the oven, I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle a little bit more water, just with my fingertips again, just over the top. There we go. And now that's ready to pop into the oven for 30 minutes. So I'm going to pop it back in the oven with the lid on. I'm going to put my timer on for 30 minutes and then we'll get it out and check on it. Okay, my 30-minute timer has just gone off, so I'm just going to get the bread and check on it now. Okay, that is looking absolutely amazing. So all I'm going to do now is pop it back into the oven without the lid for around 5 minutes and then recheck it. Okay, right, it's had another 5 minutes, so I'm just going to check on it again and see how it's browned. And oh my goodness, are you ready for the grand reveal? This bread looks absolutely delicious. So you can now see why this has become my absolute go-to bread recipe with minimal ingredients, great on a budget, and this bread will taste amazing. So I'm just going to get a knife and pop this out onto the board to have a better look. So bear with. Wow, look at this bread. Oh my goodness, look at this. That bread is absolutely delicious. Look at that bread. Isn't it absolutely delicious? It looks absolutely amazing. It will taste amazing. I say this is now my go-to bread recipe. So let me know in the comments below if you're going to have a go at making this bread. And if you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.